Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Janine Coombes describes herself as being a coach for coach-shaped people. She says that if you've honed your marketing messaging for your ideal client and people in your network just aren't getting it, then you may be in the wrong network. Thank you very much for being my guest on the podcast today, Janine.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you are a coach today and a marketer, but you come from a marketing background predominantly, don't you? So tell me about how that career started and what interested you in marketing in the first place.
Oh, gosh. I don't like being put into a box, I don't think. So when it came to choosing a degree, I thought business studies would be good. And it was a process of elimination, really, because we covered HR, operations, accounting, business management, you name it. But marketing was the thing that I thought was the most fun. So you got to specialise in marketing in the last year. And that's what I did because I thought it was the most fun.
Yeah. And so who did you go and work for after that?
I found a job. It was, I kind of fell into it because I went travelling. I did my gap year and then came back to my hometown and got a temp job, and they actually needed a marketing manager. So the temp job, which was admin based, turned into a marketing manager position. So I was quite lucky in that regard.
Yeah. And how long did you stay there?
Only about a year, because my dream was not to stay in my hometown.
I think that's a lot of people's dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
They leave home and don't return. So where did you go then? Tell me about some of the other places that you've worked.
The next job I managed to get. They were lucky to have me.
Of course.
Lucky. Was FreeServe, which might be a brand name that older people might remember. It was internet service provider before broadband.
Yes,
so
I do remember that. We had FreeServe and the whole dial-up thing and that funny little noise it used to make.
Yeah. So that was my first big job. I consider that my first big job.
Yeah. And so what have you done for these businesses that you've worked for over the years?
When I worked in corporate, I eventually, to begin with, it was more loyalty and retention. And then by the end of it, I was in proposition development. So it's offers, really. It's sort of how you position something. Still in the retention area, my final role was senior propositions manager. So we were putting together offers to have mobile phone customers renew their contracts. So there was all different types of campaigns that we'd run to preempt them wanting to leave or react to them calling up to cancel their contract. Yeah. We'd have offers ready for them.
Yeah. And so what was it that made you decide to become self-employed, and at what point in your career did that happen?
I think the idea to be self-employed probably came from my husband, because that was always his thing. And I thought, I never even thought about that, working for myself. But he set up his business while I was still in corporate. And I thought, how hard can it be? If he can do it, I can do it. And then when I was pregnant with my first child, I was intending to go back to my job. But it was like 3.5 hour round trip commute into central London, and I just didn't want to do it. I couldn't be bothered to put my child into childcare. Like, that seemed like a complete nightmare. And then the juggle, and I thought, no, I'm gonna come out. Rich's business had taken off, thank goodness. That was very good timing. And I thought, well, I'll just take a year or so to figure out what I want to do. And gradually it became clear what I wanted to do for my business.
Yeah. And so what did you do? And how hard was it to become self-employed?
It was so it was a bit of an iterative process to begin with. I was doing some freelancing work for a friend of mine who ran a digital marketing agency. And I could sort of see what I was bringing to the table and what he was doing versus what I could do. And I just thought, this is not going to work long term, me working for him. So at that point, I hadn't absolutely decided to work for myself, but it was kind of the catalyst.
Yeah.
And I started off really, really, really broad. And one of the reasons I rally against this call for everybody to be niche is because I just don't think you can rush it. Like, some people come out of corporate, or, if that's their background, and they can sell that service back to the company they've just come from, or similar companies. Like, that is a natural thing to do. I didn't have that. There was no way I was selling my marketing services back to the company it came from. They had more than 50 people in the marketing department. Like, there was no logical way I could do that. So I started helping friends with their marketing, and then I started marketing myself on LinkedIn, and I got all sorts of random leads, like the wide variety of things I was doing. But I had to go through that process to try things out.
Yes.
And eventually, through process of elimination, and because of feeling the pain of not having a clear offer myself, I was like, I'm missing a clear offer. This is actually my background. How did I forget my background? That marketing, that really solid marketing background of being super clear on who are you serving? How are you helping? Like, what is that offer? How do people pay you? It's so fundamental, and I'd completely overlooked it for an embarrassingly long time. And that's when I started getting more specific, and I started working with offers, and specifically coaches, and on their coaching offers.
Yes. So what was it that's attracted you to coach-shaped people, I think you call them?
I just love working with coaches, and some of my clients don't call themselves coaches because what they do is more a mix of coaching, mentoring, consulting. What I do is predominantly consulting, but there are coaching elements in there. I like to pick people up on self-sabotage and all that. So I feel like from that perspective, we're doing quite similar things. So it's kind of like kindred spirits, and I know what they've been through, and I know how I can help them because I've been through it myself. But what I really love about coaches is they're usually very self-aware, and they know the importance of mindset. I don't have to tell them. All I have to do is sort of call out and say, that thing you just said, is that the truth? Or is that a story you're telling yourself? Or, is that self-sabotage? Is there, and they catch it. I don't need to explain. They're like, oh yeah, it is. Okay. And then we can leap to the point where we're fixing it or finding solutions. Whereas with other service-based business owners I've worked with in the past, that element is usually trickier. Not always, but it's usually trickier.
Yeah. So coaches in what kinds of fields do you work with? Is that really broad?
Yeah, I'm. That's the element that I'm not so specific on. Like, I work with any type of coach: wellness coaches, health coaches, menopause coaches, imposter syndrome, leadership coaches. This is all a selection of clients I've worked with. I have never worked with business coaches, probably because they probably think that they do what I do. I don't tend to work with business coaches unless they're really heavy on the mindset. And I suppose that might be the common theme. It tends to be mindset-based support. Even if they're working in the nutrition and the sleep or whatever, it's still mindset is the core.
Yeah. And so what was it, do you think, that attracted you to want to coach coaches?
It was something I really didn't want to do because it just felt like a really, really busy marketplace, and it felt like they were really well served already. But I just couldn't deny the fact that when I looked at my experience, looked at the people I've been working with over the last 7 or so years, that was the most common type of person I work with, and the type of the profile of person that I got the best results for, and I enjoyed it, and it just seemed to click. And then the more I sort of leaned into it, the more you get to know that target audience, and you get to know what they're struggling with and how they articulate it, and it just made sense to double down on it.
Yeah. So tell me about what it is you help them with.
So top level, I help them earn more. So that could be with how they're selling, how they're putting themselves across, how they're doing their sales and marketing, their pricing. But beneath that is usually their offer and their messaging, like how they are articulating what they do and why somebody should work with them rather than somebody else.
Yeah.
I think that's probably like the most common thing amongst coaches is like, it's so busy. There's so many coaches nowadays, and there are accreditation bodies churning out more coaches every single day. How on earth do you stand out?
Yes.
So that is the crux. It's like, here, let's work together. We'll understand how you stand out, and get your core offer nailed. It's usually their one-to-one offer or a small group program of some description. I don't tend to work with coaches on their DIY courses or memberships. It's, my guys, they want to be coaching. They don't want to be marketing. So we try and get really slick on the marketing so they can spend more time coaching and getting more impact on that side of things.
Yeah. And how do you work with them? Is it online? Do you work with them face to face?
Yeah, always online. Once in a blue moon, I do some sort of VIP strategy day, which might be in person, but usually online. And one-to-one, I really, really do love one-to-one. I tried a group program for a while, and I ended up having loads of one-to-one calls with all of the participants because the messaging piece is so tricky to do quickly.
Yeah.
You can't do it in a 5-minute conversation. You've got to really dive deep into the coach's personality, their experience, and then you'll have a call, and then they'll rest for a week, and then they'll think of something else, and it turns out to be the absolute key. Like, you can't rush it. You've got to have time. So it's always in a typical client I'd work one-to-one with, and we'd have a couple of calls. It's quite a usual pattern for coaching, a couple of calls per month, and we'd build on that. I've got on-demand sort of curriculum that they can dip into when they need to.
Yeah.
But the magic usually happens one-to-one.
Yeah. So what kind of issues or problems do they initially tend to come to you with?
So it's a mixture. So some people know that their offer isn't clear enough and that their messaging isn't clear enough. So that's quite straightforward, because then we just dive in. Some people are not getting the sales they want, but they think the messaging is fine. They're usually wrong. It's usually a key part. I've had a couple of clients this year that actually came to me for messaging help, and their messaging was really, really, really good. And actually, the issue that they had was they weren't putting in enough of their energy or time and effort into that bottom of the funnel messaging.
Yeah.
So it was like, what does it look like when your ideal clients are ready to buy right now? And are you creating content for those people? You're creating lots of content for people earlier on, and they're resonating with you and they think you're wonderful. But are you calling to people who are actually ready, willing and able to work with you right now? And what is it that they need to hear so that they know that they need to talk to you? And that can be, again, it's a messaging piece in itself. And that needs a bit of in-depth inspection usually.
Yeah. So how many clients do you tend to work with at any one time?
I'd say absolute maximum would be 15, but it doesn't usually get that high. I am usually more like 10. But I do like to weave in, I've got some other revenue streams, so it's never the full picture.
Yeah. And how long do people work with you for?
It varies. Usually I say to really see an impact, it's got to be absolute minimum 3 months. Most people, it's 6 months or 9 months. I've got, a folder full of snippets of testimonials, which is always nice to read. If I'm feeling down, you go and visit your brag book, as some people call it. So it's things like people being able to sell out their mini group program more easily. I've got one client at the moment who is year on year, like her figures have doubled. So it is ups and downs, and I have to sort of say that this year has been really hard.
Yeah.
I think I from people I speak to, not in the coaching industry, I think they found it hard as well. But in the coaching industry, I think it's a really hard sell this year to get people to part with money and work on themselves.
Yeah.
It's been a tricky one this year.
I think it's not just you. It seems to be across the board. Everybody I talk to, people haven't been spending money recently. Now, I know that you're also a public speaker. So who do you like to speak to and what do you speak about?
So my ideal audience are probably upbeat. Plenty of coach-shaped people in there would be lovely. One of the funnest gigs I've done probably was Atomicon, which is a yearly conference in Newcastle, and it was just a really good vibe, really good fun, lots going on, and I got some brilliant photography out of it. Shots of me on stage, which is always nice, little bonus. But MarketEd.Live I did last year as well, and that was really good atmosphere as well. Yeah.
So let's turn to the networking now. Was networking something that you did when you were in the corporate world?
Not at all. I think my only experience of networking was in my first job. They sent me to a local networking thing. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know why I was there. I didn't know how it worked. I think I just stood in a corner and shuffled and then left early. I just didn't know I didn't know what it was for. And then, years passed and I left corporate. I did join a networking group many years ago when I was in the first year or two of running my business. And I found that a little bit discombobulating, to be honest, because it was a wrong fit for what I was offering. And I think, if anybody's listening to this and thinks, gosh, I'm turning up and nobody's getting it, it might be that you're not clear on your offering, but it might be that they're not your ideal clients.
Yeah.
So watch out for that, because people giving you feedback on your offer who are not your ideal clients, it can be a really dangerous route down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. So how do you like to network for your business now?
I attend conferences and there's a couple of memberships I'm well embedded in. So I kind of consider that networking because, I know people, they know me, we refer each other business. Sometimes we work with each other. We pass each other other opportunities. So it feels like a networking thing. And I'm part of that only network, which is really good. I joined about a year ago, and I think it is the only like proper formal networking thing that I've ever done, but it seems really, really good.
Yeah. And what do you get from networking?
What do I get from networking? So you do get the odd client, or I have had the odd client, but it's more. There's so many more things.
Yeah.
There's so many more benefits, like the camaraderie, the support, I love connecting people. If somebody wants, for instance, a coach, I'm like, I can hook you up.
Yeah.
Like you want a coach for transgender boys? Yeah, I can hook you up. Like I've got a coach for everything in my little black book. Doing wider networking, I can connect people for all different sorts of things, all different sorts of industries, all different sorts of reasons or needs.
Yeah.
I love that. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. And is networking something that you recommend to your clients?
Yeah, I do sometimes. I'm very channel agnostic with my clients. I usually would say, don't start a new thing, double down on your current thing and, make that work. If you like it, If you don't like it, fine, try something new. But I have recommended only networking to a couple of clients because it fitted what they were trying to do. It fitted with their business objectives. So it's got to be right for you. It can be. I was going to say it can be time consuming, but it's not more time consuming than posting on Instagram.
No.
Like, I mean, you could spend all your time doing that and not necessarily get great results if you do it, in not the greatest way. So no, I take that back. It's not too time consuming.
Yeah. So who have you met at networking? Have you met any interesting people?
Oh gosh, so many really interesting people. Deborah Levitt springs to mind, who runs a podcasting matchmaking kind of service.
Yes.
So she's really interesting. So I'm in her membership as well.
Mm-hmm.
Such a lovely woman. Who else? You're putting me on the spot. I've met Ashley. Now I feel like I have to roll call every interest.
It can just be general, or kinds of people.
Oh, okay, kinds of people. Yeah, I suppose there's people that I've met networking that then I speak to on LinkedIn, and that becomes a nice continued conversation. I've met coaches, I've met service providers, I've met a graphic designer who's hopefully going to help me with some graphics, so suppliers, just you name it, they're all in there.
Yeah. So what's next for your business, Janine, as we go into 2025?
I'm writing a book.
Oh, tell me more.
I have nearly finished the first draft of my first book. It's called The Easy Yes, and it's for coach-shaped people who want to earn more without doing any sleazy sales tactics. And it's a fresh take on the customer buyer journey, but I'm not going to put that on the front cover because it sounds really boring. But it's a tool that I struck upon earlier this year when I was trying to help a client plan out her content, and it wasn't making sense if we were following a traditional buyer journey. It just wasn't making sense. And then I noticed something. I noticed that a typical buyer journey sort of muddles up whether the client is ready to buy or not, and whether they know you well or not yet. So I've pulled them apart and created a model which I have since been using with clients. And it's just saved so much time, because if they come to me and say, oh my God, I had this amazing lead and I did this pitch and then I didn't get the job. And then I'm like, right, okay, well, what's going on? It's probably this. And they're like, oh, and then they don't feel bad about themselves. It's like, oh, okay, the client wasn't actually ready enough to buy yet.
Yeah.
They were probably here and not here. So it's a really helpful and I think quite fun little tool, and it's going to be a short book, which is one of the reasons I've managed to get it written. I don't think I'm a very, very lengthy writer.
Makes it easy to read as well, if it's nice and short.
Yes, it's going to be get in there, deliver the information, you can implement it straight away, and then I get out.
Yeah. Sounds perfect. Lovely. So if people are interested in your book or your services, what is the best place for them to find you, Janine?
Yeah, if you would like to visit my website, which is janinecoombes.co.uk, and if you're interested in signing up to the waitlist for the book, it's then janinecoombes.co.uk /easy-yes-waitlist. And I'd be very happy to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn is my online home.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for being my guest today. And I'm sure our paths will cross networking in the near future.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.